Welcome to the Safety and Risk Success podcast with me, Christian Harris. In this episode, I'm joined by Jesse Tayler, a Silicon Valley pioneer who invented the first digital app store. We explore how the app store was really built as an anti-fraud software around digital rights, and how that same thinking applies to one of today's biggest challenges, trust in the digital world. Jesse shares why the internet has given us more of everything except trust, why identity may be the final frontier, and how current approaches to verification could actually be making things worse. This is a thought-provoking conversation on trust, risk, and what the future of the internet really looks like. I hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to the Safety and Risk Success podcast with Christian Harris. We believe that proactive safety and risk management powers business performance. Each week, we explore this theme, sharing guests, stories, insights, trends, hints, and tips. You can find us on all the major podcasting platforms, and video versions are available on YouTube. But for now, let's join the conversation with Christian.
Thanks for joining me on the podcast, Jesse.
You're very welcome. I'm happy to be here. It's been a long time coming, so it's exciting.
Yeah, because we met briefly, didn't we, at Risk Europe in November. But we finally got there.
We did, and I'm surprised that I didn't quite know who you were until you explained I was approaching your booth through natural instinct, and there we were.
Well, yeah, it's because we had the Formula One driving simulator that was attracting everyone to come and see us.
Oh, I was there for the slip floor.
Ah, there you go. Well, that's good to hear. I'll send you your $20 through the post for saying that later. So Jesse, was keen to get you on, partly to hear a bit about your backstory, which is really, really interesting. So you, without spoiling it, you invented the first app store. So what sort of problem were you trying to solve back then? We'll talk a bit about that, and then we'll get into what you're up to now.
Oh, thanks. That's actually a brilliant question. Most people just want to hear about Steve Jobs. Um, the App Store is very interesting. First of all, I'm not entirely sure about the etymology. We certainly called them apps. We certainly called it an app store. But we thought it was the application storefront, which was sort of our word for the project, because it had to be an application. It couldn't just be a list of apps. It couldn't be encrypted apps. It has to be something that, transfers the software, installs it, purchases it all at once. And when you think about it, what is the App Store? It is anti-fraud software. It's there to ensure that the artists who create software are paid.
Yeah.
And this has made the price much more fair for consumers, and part of that is the growth of the market, but part of it is just a matter of efficiency. Letting go the physical part and becoming purely part of the digital world was really our goal. We understood that printing books and manuals and all of these helpful things, which people expected at that time, were possibly solved through other means. But if you forced every sale to require that physical inventory, well, now it seems obvious, but the App Store cannot run out of inventory, right? As many people who want to bum rush the store and download Pokemon Go, it doesn't matter. And the rights, the digital rights, the encryption was difficult, but the real time-consuming problem that we had to solve was who has the right to what? Who are the stakeholders? How does this work? And so those two words, anti-fraud and digital rights, are really what unlocked the revolution of apps and the ability to be paid for your work. Today, that's a big part of the economy, and it's a global sensation, and it's grown up. But at that time, it was really almost the opposite of what people were thinking. It wasn't any
Yeah.
different. You're still buying software, right? It's the exact same thing, but it almost takes it to tables and turns them
Mm.
because of digital rights.
Yeah.
So it's ironic because this is 1990, and even at my age, I was still only 20. And this is really, in a certain way, the first truly professional product that I was writing on my own. And it's an irony to me today that then I was always the youngest person on the team. Now I'm always the oldest person on the team. And here I am back with a problem involving digital rights and risk and
Mm.
fraud. So, in a certain way, the App Store is very germane to what
Mm.
is happening today on the internet. Perhaps the final thing to be brought 100% into the digital world is ourselves, our identity.
Mm.
And it is perhaps the most difficult to do, but I think it might be the last major thing since the 1980s when we began to go digital. Music, everything is digital, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in a world where, your banking is on an app, where dating is on an app, where finding a job is on an app, and everything is on some trusted platform or another, um, we find ourselves as society in a position of great risk because there is this one final thing that hasn't properly transitioned into a purely digital solution. And so that's,
Yeah.
you know, I I joke to people that TrueAnon is a bit of an invention of ignorance because had you told me how people do it, then I would have probably improved that method. But frankly, being entirely ignorant, as I mentioned earlier, dating on Craigslist, which I consider the most dangerous dating platform ever created, left me with a thought experiment. How do I preserve my reputation? How do I assure that other people have their reputation? Um, uh, this is this word reputation. This is everything. This is your physical safety. This
Mm.
isn't just looking bad to your workmates who read your dating profile and say, geez, that's embarrassing. This is more than embarrassment.
Mm.
This is a situation where, on that Craigslist site, in all honesty, people are trying to hunt you down. They are there to harm you.
Mm.
And there you are trying to find a date. It's, yeah. I have four little kids now. I cannot imagine. What if they had to do what I did 20 years ago, back
Mm.
when it was a pickpocket crime? The reality that my children face is not something that I can allow to happen without dedicating myself to digital rights and securing our future.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's it's a bit of a stumbling into it story.
Hmm.
You know, but in effect, I do have a background of anti-fraud and digital rights, and I
Yeah.
did use those powers
Mm.
to create this. It was a
Yeah.
sort of a deep thought experiment.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's interesting is that, and I will ask you about Steve Jobs in a minute, by the way, but it's interesting how if you look at the economy, so if you look at like the balance sheets of large businesses now, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, into the 90s as well, the balance sheets of these big businesses were made up of sort of physical assets, buildings and stock and so on. Whereas actually now the assets on these balance sheets are mostly intangible, digital, reputational kind of assets. So the business world has kind of got to that point of, we're asset rich digitally, but as you say, from a personal sort of people perspective, we're not quite there yet, and that's that last frontier that you spoke about. But you're quite right that the risk of that is that if something goes wrong, something happens, it's so fast, isn't it? How, just look at like the formerly Prince Andrew thing. The story breaks and it's across the world, and his life is ruined in seconds.
It is interesting how this word risk has become so meaningful. I feel like an entire dictionary could have just that one word.
Yeah.
Um, it's profound because what does the word mean? It's the responsibility for what happens when something goes wrong. Um, you might think that in my dating experience, I'm the only one who can be killed. I'm the one who's being attacked. But look who lost their reputation. Craigslist.
Hmm.
They were the sixth largest website in the planet at that point, known throughout the globe and explosively growth. Run by a handful of hippies in San Francisco who simply didn't want to give up people's identity every time they were served a subpoena from the government. Um, a reasonable desire. They don't want people to be killed on their platform. None of those engineers wakes up in the morning
No.
and says, "Boy, I can't wait to write another feature that fraudsters use to filter victims." Um, it's a very difficult situation. You need a third party involved to allow members to take the risk to themselves. In other words, you must give people tools to protect themselves.
Hmm.
Privacy. Privacy and identity have everything to do with physical safety. And this risk to reputation is not just my own, it's the platforms. And if we don't make it risk-free for the platform, a solution to make you and me safer online cannot persist. It must have economic backing. It must be valuable to the platforms. And right now, services are basically um, authority driven. They
Hmm.
say, you give me a picture of your ID, and I will decide if you are who you say. Well, you already are you.
Yeah.
You don't need a government to say this, and you don't need to get a private thing to exchange between an authority. People don't want to do that just to date, just to be on a website. They just don't. It's
Hmm.
not a benefit, right? Um, so it's very interesting because to solve the digital rights of all these stakeholders, you need to remove the risk from the platform and push that risk, the responsibility, back to me with a tool
Hmm.
that I can use to control it how I want. If you're unable to do that, then you end up with an authority driven system and people don't like it. It doesn't work. It tries to take something physical, like a piece of ID. This is rather ironic because it's not 1950. That ID card is printed from what? Your digital account data, right? Why
Yeah.
did we print it out? So that you could use it when the internet is not available. Right? So fundamentally, I realized, and I'm not responsible because I wasn't the first person to have to write a bank onboarding web app. I did other first web apps, the first geo delivery, the App Store, things like this, but that one is not my responsibility. But the engineer was asked, how do we onboard people to the bank online? Well, I don't know. How do you do it in person? Well, you come into the bank and you show us your card, If you're live there and you're a citizen, you get a bank account. Oh, well, I guess the way we do that online is we take a picture of it. Oh no. When something is digital, infinite copies can be generated without detection forever.
Hmm.
So when I want to pass that gate as a fraudster, I don't reach into my pocket and give you my ID. No, I spend $10 on the dark web and I say, I want to pass whatever gate it is, you name your provider, and there are proven to pass packages. You just pay a few bucks and you get one. Where'd they come from? They were stolen. Why were they stolen? Because they were valuable, right? Our social security number here in the United States, that's how we have our retirement through the government. It's a boring number, but it's unique to each citizen. So some smart engineers said, oh my, here's a unique number that represents you. If you just give me that number, then I know who you are. Well, now all you've done is you've made it so that people who steal that formerly useless piece of number, something you didn't care about at all. But now, because we've used it to prove identity, we've valued its theft.
Mm.
And just one quick thing that you mentioned before our call about obsolescence. How do we make something not valuable? Well, that's kind of the answer. We've elevated these private things. Nobody cared about your driver's license before. Maybe your son tried to buy,
Yeah,
alcohol
yeah.
with it, you know, but really, it wasn't any good to anyone else, right? It's only useful to you.
Yeah.
By using it as a way to prove our identity online, we brought it into the digital universe, and that changed the world, changed the laws of physics. Copies can be made forever. And
Mm.
once you took a picture of your driver's license, you simply cannot remove it. I don't care what services are out there that will demand things taken down. It's done. It's over.
Yeah.
So, that's the antithesis. How do we create a purely digital solution that
Mm.
doesn't have books, that doesn't have ID cards? It's the same.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've talked about identity being kind of the final frontier, I think, and in this kind of dawn of the trusted internet. What's how do you see that working, and what's kind of the what's broken now that we need to fix to get to that point of the trusted internet?
That's a good question. And of course, it's anybody say what is the final frontier.
Mm.
Um, but, you know, trust is fundamental. Trust is why we vote. Trust is why we put our money in the bank. Trust is why we have friends. Trust is the glue of society, of civilization.
Hmm.
It's a word that we don't relegate to the pillar of words because it's so pervasive we forget. Someone once asked me, when we go online we seem to get more of everything, right? Where are you? Somewhere in London?
Yeah.
Well, I'm here in New York City. Isn't that across the globe? um That's amazing, right? Our connection to be able to connect, it's not just airplanes, it's electronics, it's digital, it's this internet revolution, the
Mm.
web. So y- you think about all the advantages, maps on our phones. Star Trek did not have maps on their phones, okay? We live in an incredible future. We get more of everything.
Yep.
But that one thing might be trust. It is. We don't get less of it. We get a lot less of it. We get negative trust. It is an extraordinary fact that once you realize that reality, you understand that the digital revolution, once you're done making your platform to date, to marketplace, you take money, whatever. What are you? You are trust.
Hmm.
That's all there is. Why do we have profiles? Because avatars are a lot less trustworthy,
Yep.
right? So, really, Craigslist included, all of us are in the business of making up for the loss of trust in the digital universe.
Mm.
And I think perhaps the final frontier, certainly the final great frontier, perhaps the most important thing of them all, ourselves, our reputation. Think of it more as your children's reputation. Do you want them to experience what you did on dating sites? No! And you ask yourself in the future, is this getting better or is it getting worse?
Mm.
The answer
Yeah.
is sobering. Anyone who tells you it's getting better has a hole in their head. Okay. This
I mean,
is
if
getting
anything,
worse
it's
since grown
getting
up.
exponentially worse with AI, isn't it? Because you've got AI sort of multiplying um, fake stuff in terms of avatar AI avatars, and you see people um, writing articles with AI and writing social media posts with AI and using AI for all sorts of things, and they're not so it's not authentic. It's you can't have trust there.
It's true. AI does not have a university ID. It doesn't have, MIT email. It doesn't have ownership over a domain that a corporation has. Um, it doesn't have a history of interacting the way humans do. Um, a boring example is that I'm a software engineer, and like all software engineers, I have an account on GitHub. Normal people might not even know this site, but every engineer does. We all have an account on there. It's part of our career, our job, our performance, everything. Now, GitHub has a profile. It's not one that I often show off to girls on a dating site, but it does have 15 years of my checking code in and out of other people's repositories. It has public and private transactions over years. Well, the operator of that account is assumed to be the person that these people hired, that they engaged with, that they know. And really, the same is true with your TikTok. It's just not as obvious. Um, and yeah, it is astonishing how the race of technology is I'm going to build a better mousetrap. You're going to build a better mouse. I don't know what
Yeah,
you get what I'm trying to say.
yeah, yeah.
But this war goes on, and I'll tell you, the war doesn't have to end. It doesn't have to go on forever. I'll give you a very concrete example. And in fact, it is the App Store. The first time I saw Steve Jobs use the App Store was iTunes Music. Mostly music, a few apps. We were mostly apps, a few songs. Um, it was not what I expected, and we as a startup couldn't get the entire globe's music industry to give us their songs. Um, but look at what Steve did with digital rights. He didn't make software music piracy impossible, right? You could steal songs. It's easier now than it was in 2000. I should think.
Mm.
Um, people largely don't do it because, well, there's that old thing, crime pays. When it doesn't pay, you don't do
Yeah.
it. So, what did Steve do? He presented two options to the consumer. You can go on to the LimeWires and whatever, download unknown data, right? Unverified data. And maybe you'll get a song, maybe it's low quality, maybe it's spam.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a virus and your computer just starts going off the wall. Or you could pay a buck, right? Why would anyone pay a buck for something they can already get for free? Because verified data is valuable. It's easily worth a buck
Mm, mm,
to avoid the risk, right? So there's a lesson in there about online fraud. Our job isn't to make it impossible or to alter the laws of the digital universe. We cannot. When you put something in the digital universe, copies can be made infinitely. A song is easily copied forever. Every song is already in digital format, already without protection, already available to you. Do you
yeah.
steal them? No, probably not, right?
No,
Maybe you used to.
I
So
definitely did back in the day.
I admit I might do a few of those myself. Um, but you remember, this was the whole music industry it- looking at their demise. They had they had taken all of the artists' work, thousands and thousands of artists' life work, and they had put it into the digital world without understanding how to protect something in that world. They were used to just putting copyrighted material on a platter. Well, you only got one of those, you bought it, so
Yeah.
that's that.
Hmm.
That's not the way the digital universe treats a record. And so I think the art and brilliance of those who wield these digital rights, I really have to say, Steve Jobs was not only able to get the music industry on, which we as a startup could not, but he also understood the power of obsolescence. Fraud doesn't happen when it's obsolete, when it
Mm,
doesn't pay. And it's possible to effectively eliminate it. People don't steal music because it doesn't pay. People didn't used to steal your social security number because it was useless. Um, so this is the trick, and we sometimes get into the war mode of thinking, and we think, well, statistically, people who attack the bank and try to get through, we could limit them. Ask everyone more stuff. And every time you do, in fact, fraud numbers go down. But some guys from the other department are like, our onboarding numbers just went down 100-fold. And
yeah.
you brought fraud down 1%? Then these two internal groups are arguing. Oh, that's not efficient. That's bleeding. That's fraud. Fraud is removing money from the legitimate people and giving it to the non-legitimate people. So when we create a situation mechanically that leaks like that, we effectively are the gas of the engine of fraud. And that's what's
Mm,
happening now is that we feed it. And the more we fight it with authority, the more we lose.
yeah.
The more we put out there and the more people get abused. And so what happens is that a few legitimate people get totally hosed, and the platform statistically, overall, reduces the fraud, but
Yeah.
only by reducing their onboarding and making it more difficult for all of us, including them. They also have to go onto a site to date. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So this is all of us. We should
Mm,
all agree that we need to secure our future world.
yeah.
It's an incredibly important question.
Mm, mm, mm. And is your expectation then, if we can do that, that, you know, this new dawn will mean, I suppose, that, this digital transition, goes even further, and just, the old ways will just be totally obsolete and everything's going to be done because we haven't quite crossed that level of trust fully. And, if we can get that fully verified internet, is the world going to be just so fundamentally different than we can even imagine now?
It is hard to imagine and it's difficult to predict. But I would say that we have already seen the answer to much of this question, you know. iTunes is a real example. That's a real industry. They were shitting their pants. Um, and now they're going on and doing what they're there to do, to bring us entertainment. Isn't that lovely? Um, So, yeah, these are really fundamental things that affect us as parents, as brothers and sisters, as children, as individuals, as corporate people, as platform creators. I'm serious when I say those kids at Craigslist do not wake up in the morning looking
No.
forward to their software being used for extortion, rape, and murder.
Yeah.
Nobody does. Nobody does. So it is a difficult problem because it requires you to think differently. It requires you to kind of turn the tables and say, there is no authority, there is no amount of war that can win. The only way to win is a deal of peace. Not to bring this into our modern wartime world, but we can
Yeah.
see this in humanity. This is the way
Hmm.
we behave. These
Yeah.
are the natural instincts and reactions that humans have. You must work with that natural instinct, that natural behavior. And if you work against it, you have war. What we need is not authority fighting authority or authority fighting the individual. We need to take that risk, that responsibility. It's already your responsibility. We just need to push it back down so that it's your choice. And if you can control your privacy and you can anchor these digital properties, then you don't need the card that represents the digital property.
Hmm.
It's not complicated, but it is absolutely reverse
Yeah.
of the way we're all thinking about it. And so I believe in a certain way what we have is another iTunes moment with identity, where we simply say, look, there's a choice in front of you. There is unknown identity for you, for the people that you connect with, and there is an availability for all of us to be able to equally achieve credibility and own it, control it, turn it off, grant visibility, and revoke. That's my right. So you see, digital rights, that's the legal framework in the digital world.
Hmm.
This legal framework is what defines what is a law to be broken, what is a crime, what is fraud. And this definition can be, unlike the real world, it can actually be programmed, right? We can create an API using bits and bytes, and we can create a one-way street where the platform doesn't know your identity. You didn't give it to them. They ask, owner, what do you know about my member name, whatever it is? And down comes whatever that owner has granted you visibility to. This small digital right, as written in APIs and what we call zero knowledge proofs, um, this mechanism puts blinders so that you can ask me to give up identity, but the truth is, I didn't store it, I didn't process it, I didn't even see it. Um, so you can't go to the platform and say, I have a subpoena, give me up the person that I'm looking for. They don't have it. Sorry. In fact, go take their database. You still can't reverse connect backwards. Um, Only with this kind of separation can you create the environment where that responsibility is pushed down to the individual and they are given the control over privacy that they need,
Mhm.
not to be doxxed, not to be hunted down, and not to be made fun of in front of your own, coworkers for your stupid dating post. Okay? It's private. It's private.
Mm.
Uh, and
Mm.
this privacy is directly connected to your personal safety.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have to make this world a secure online world. We must,
Yeah. Yeah.
must.
Are there any sort of potential downsides to that? So, for example, if we overcorrect and we kind of maybe cause anonymity to be lost in cases where maybe it's needed, or maybe any unintended potential consequences of this kind of fully verified approach that you're talking about?
Well, I don't know. I think by pushing this responsibility down to the individual, we also push the risk down to the individual. Um, so part of the question is there risk, and are we pushing it down to you? And what does that mean? I think we can all agree there is risk. Um, but I think my wife and I both maybe had a anti-government streak or something. It's unclear to me at my age why we would have exposed ourselves to sharks and piranha. I mean, exclusively, really. The chances of finding a real human in there are actually slim. Um, and these people weren't trying to scam you, they were trying to harm you. If you let them find you, they could kill you.
Yeah.
This is not a joke. All I wanted was a date. So, you think about what it is to be responsible, and I suppose maybe I came from a anti-government, sort of position, but something about the anonymous relay mechanism of Craigslist. It's basically you don't give up any identity until you decide to do so. Once you do, it's binary. They've got
Hmm.
you. Okay,
Yeah.
there's nothing in between. But if I don't trust the responses I'm getting, I don't give my normal email. And at some point, I recognized my wife as being real, and I just wanted to talk to her. So I don't remember if she gave me hers or I gave her mine, and we moved off the platform. It's very binary and perhaps very dangerous, but I would rather make that decision myself through
Hmm.
informed means. So, to answer your question, I think it can't be worse. It must be better. Because even if we're foolish with our identity, even if we let people see it who should not, how could that be worse than simply taking a picture of it that can be used forever?
Yeah.
Um, Not only did we add risk to ourselves, but we just gave fraudsters yet another example of something that they can use to pass that gate. And think about the result. We are all now having to jump through hoops to get into websites. Do the fraudsters have to? No, they don't open up their own wallet and get their own ID. That would be stupid.
Mm.
They buy it and they pass it. So that's the iTunes thing. How do
Yeah.
you make a permanent connection that binds back to you? For me, it's a safety rope.
Hmm.
I'm not going on a journey up that climb without a safety rope.
No.
And if I see you don't bother to have one, well, this is a little conspicuous. You know, why wouldn't you anchor back to something trusted, right? Even if I can't see where your rope goes, if you don't have something tied onto you,
Mm.
then you're at risk, and I've chosen not to be. So when I come across your profile and you've just written me 25 minutes about buying your Nigerian oil, and I don't know anything about Nigerian oil, so I don't know to pass on you. I instinctively, as a human, as an animal, don't trust you
Hmm.
because I say to myself, well, I have a score of 3.2. It took me 10 minutes. Um, it's a benefit to me. If this is a benefit, a safety rope, why doesn't this guy have it? I
Mm.
don't need instruction. I don't need study. I simply ignore them. In fact, I probably just filter them out with a little checkbox. Right? So this makes their job more expensive.
Yeah.
So what do? They move on to less trusted platforms. Now, you and I are not thieves. We were stealing music because, frankly, we didn't have access to it.
Yeah.
We were happy to pay a buck. Now, the fraudsters are never going to be that, right? So, what you need to do is reduce the cost for us, make it reasonable, right? A buck turns out to be fine. Um, Now, that needs to be balanced with the difficulty. And if you can
Mm.
balance those two things and you say, look, there's a benefit for going through this process, the benefit is obvious. Um, you're in control. Oh, sure. You could go onto a dating site and you could not protect yourself very well. You could just say, hey, this is me. Maybe you're
Yeah.
a public person and it really doesn't matter, right? I don't know. That's the point. It's not my job as an authority to tell you how to protect yourself.
Hmm.
It's really my job as a platform
Yeah.
to give you tools that you can say, this protects me and I can see who out there I should trust. And people just naturally trust other trusted badge wearing members.
Yeah.
So, I think that's really the fundamentals is to create something that has this persistence of benefit.
Hmm.
Um, the App Store works because it is a good place to sell your digital wares and it's a good place to buy them.
Yeah.
Why? Because it is a fraud reduction machine. I don't think
Hmm.
people steal software anymore. They used to because I'd give you floppy disks.
Yeah.
Now you just buy it for a buck. That's profound. You can't prevent fraud. You can't prevent bad actors, but you can make their job obsolete on your platform.
Yeah.
And this will reduce your reputation risk so that you don't end up like Craigslist, but you're also helping your members, and that can't be bad. What brand wouldn't benefit from that?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
again, it comes back to this trust issue. We've got so much less. We need to build something that creates the trust that is deficit in the online world. And if we do that, then we have an online world for which the digital rights make sense. We agree.
Yeah. Hmm.
See, that's the peace deal.
Yeah.
There's no way to war your way out of this situation.
No. No. It's a good.
Only a deal of peace that
Yeah.
everyone can trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not
It's a,
referring to the Strait of Hormuz, by the way.
no. 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 But it's a good
Absolutely
analogy.
not.
Yeah. Definitely.
But you
Definitely good
get what I
analogy.
mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So Jesse, what for someone who's joining us today, listening or watching us, I mean, what should they be doing practically? Both from a personal perspective and I suppose a business perspective. If it's somebody that's managing a business or managing safety and risk within a business, what are some of the things they should be thinking about and some of the things they should be doing themselves, given everything we've been talking about?
Well, I would urge people in trust and safety and the CEOs and owners of all these platforms to think about this not as a barrier to entry, right? We were talking about the folks who want to decrease those fraud statistics and the people who are watching onboarding. These two groups exist in every online platform. Every online platform watches onboarding, the rate at which people come and get into your environment and use it.
Hmm.
Now, when you put up more barriers, that number goes down. Maybe the fraud slips down a bit, uh, but you could see there's an imbalance. So I would urge people that work in TNS and own these platforms to think a little bit more about what are the rights? What are my rights? A platform has rights. It should be able to agree to a peace deal that gives it what it needs. And
Yeah.
what it needs is a brand that is trusted and where that trust cannot be broken such that you wake up and one morning you read about your own damn platform with some outrageous, hellacious thing that you don't
Yeah.
wish upon yourself. You don't wish upon your children. You're not happy with that. Nothing good happens of that. So think about this not as an oppression, a war, an authority. Think about the fact that you've got a community who is willing to work for you, right? A community driven process engages everybody. You know, here in New York City, especially after 9/11, every time you ride the subway, there's a little announcement that comes up. If you see something, say something. That's
Hmm.
just our phrase. It's kind of like the US mind the gap.
Yeah.
Um, the message is, of course, don't keep it to yourself. The community is far greater than our small police force, than our experts, than our SWAT teams, right? Those are an incredibly tiny fraction. If we could spread the eyes of everyone who all agrees they don't want a bomb on the subway,
Yeah.
okay? That's something we all agree to. You don't have to convince everybody. It's not a sales job. Okay? What you do is you create a mechanism where those eyes work for you. And that's just the same in online fraud. If I'm on a dating site and you see that I've got a score of 4.3 out of 5, and you got your score of 4.2 out of 5, you don't know necessarily what digital properties I might be anchored to. But you know that those digital properties are public, that they have a history, that that history pre-existed your identity and continues. These are all things that we don't need a judgment. The software looks and reflects.
Hmm.
We didn't give you anything you didn't already have, right? Um, so that's the key thing. And if you decide to let everyone see what your LinkedIn is or what your GitHub is, well, that's really just pushing that decision down to the person who should make it. And so, yeah, some people will still make mistakes. Some people will reveal themselves on some dating site to some bad actor or somebody who harms them. But who better to make that informed decision than you? I don't want an authority to simply say, you're not who you are.
Mm.
That sucks. And it's a sucky thing to have an argument with for a platform that I was just trying to sell my, socks or an old phone or something.
Yeah.
It's really infuriating. You go onto a marketplace and there are fake buyers, there are fake sellers, and they attack you, probably using AI to generate their comments.
Yeah.
So why can't we get rid of these guys? Because they can always return. Even when you have the private show me your ID, I can't store that. It's private. I can't compare it to you later and say, hey, you're the same guy I just banned last week. You just came back with another email address and spelled your name different. I can't do that because it's private. I'm not allowed. So the trick is often not in the private stuff, it's really in the public stuff. The public stuff is a reflection of how many people are looking at me, how many people are expecting me to be
Mm.
the guy that runs the GitHub. That's my LinkedIn. It's been there 15 years. See, so by binding and anchoring to these public things, I can show them to you if I want, but I can also quantify them and simply show you a number. I'm genuine. 4.3 out of 5 says that I am who I say. And you understand what that number means because you did it yourself.
Yeah.
So that's the key. It's not about hating government. That might have been my motivation with my wife or something. I don't know. But it is about protecting reputation. And that is the same for the platform. If you don't protect their reputation, you're not protecting their members. And if you're
Yeah.
protecting their members and not them, then it's not something that they want on their platform.
Yeah.
You have to solve the digital rights. Everyone must agree. But the
Hmm.
weird thing is, everyone wants peace,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
except the fraudsters. But
Yeah.
they're cut out. They're a tiny fraction of a fraction. They're not a plurality. They are a tiny, tiny fraction. They just have an outsized impact. They look like 1,000 to 1. They're not. They're just using AI and scripts.
Yeah.
It's vulgar.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's you sometimes can get the wrong impression about the size and scope of that stuff, can't you? But that's why we've got to be careful because they are now able to multiply and do stuff at bigger scale. So hence, this conversation is really important. So Jesse, if people are interested in what you've been having to say today, what's the best way to kind of follow you or get in touch with you? And is there anything that you've got coming up that you want to sort of talk about, or any like articles or webinars or anything like that?
Absolutely. First of all, I really am just a, a father and a software inventor. Um, Part of my job is learning from you, from the people in your audience. If there are folks out there who have, questions, you can get my email, you can get my calendar. There's not always a huge number of spaces, but sign up. I will speak to you. Um, I am brought to this problem space not through any means other than trying to secure a future world for my children. So when you reach out to me as a platform owner, as a fraud person, as a trust person, as a whatever, interested father, pet mother, I don't care. Um, you and I will have something to discuss because this is all I do.
Yeah.
And I think the proof is in the pudding. So what I'm here to do is to make you and your platform risk-free, to reduce that, and that's my job and my purpose. This makes my life relatively simple. I'm not a salesman. You
Mhm.
can tell by my hair. Um, I am. My job is to learn. Yeah, anyone who wants to come to trueanon.com, that's not QAnon, TrueAnon. Um, Come to TrueAnon, you can get keys, you can make whatever you want. Um, Anyone that is in your audience now knows who I am. You can speak to me first. I'll get you better keys, whatever I can do. I don't know. I am glad to help you. I'm glad to hear about your problems. So my real message is just like the keynote where you and I met there in London. Um, I'm here at your service. There's nothing that I could do to help you that wouldn't teach me more.
Yeah,
It is
yeah,
my privilege.
yeah. No, that's a great message, and I agree. That's how we learn together and we develop together, and how we make cool things happen that will make the world a better and a safer place at the end of the day. So there's a
Can I
full
just tell
alignment
you
there.
one more thing, though, about
Hmm.
you personally? I thought
Go
about
on.
you because here I was in New York City and I walked into the supermarket. Oh, yes. And I noticed the guy was sloppily mopping with way too much soap.
Yeah.
The ground was totally wet. And I looked down and it was not linoleum. It
Hmm.
was some sort of fake woody thing, and it had a little bit of something. And I checked. No slip floor. Honestly, there is no story about the value of underwriting insurance to say When someone slips in your store and they sue you, not only have you harmed one of your customers, but you're actually losing money.
Yeah.
This money could be spent on research.
Hmm.
How do we make it so that does not happen? We are so often unhappy with underwriting and insurance and other things. We look at it as an expense, as a burden,
Yeah. Yeah.
but no. If we did not have that, we would still have workplaces where your father doesn't come home.
Hmm.
Okay, that's what we lived with 1 and 200 years ago. We
Yeah.
are, we are improving. The world is getting more safe. It
Yeah.
does matter. The
Yeah.
digital world is here in front of us now, and we need that for the digital world. We need the no slip surface.
Yeah. Another good analogy. Now, before we wrap up, Jesse, I'm pretty sure that you've never been on a podcast before where they haven't asked you at all about Steve Jobs until the very last question. So I've just got to say, give us a little story or an insight about Steve Jobs because very iconic figure.
He is, and all jokes aside, I had several Steve-related startups that I thought were better stories at the time. It wasn't really until iTunes and later iOS where people began to say, that App Store was a important thing. And I agreed. Um, the irony is, of course, it's a failure story. What is Jesse doing pitching Steve Jobs from his startup? That was not our exit, path. We wanted to be the Amazon of, whatever. I
Hmm.
mean, that wasn't so. Uh, if there are entrepreneurs out there in your audience, remember that failure can be more powerful than success. I am a living example. If you go to my LinkedIn or find my bio online, it's going to say something like Silicon Valley legend, App Store inventor. But how did that come to be? That's a failure. Um, it's very interesting to see how we, credit invention and how invention finds its way into our daily lives. Um, I'm actually not much of a legend. I'm mostly a very private person. Steve Jobs is exceptional because he is unencumbered by reality.
Hmm.
He can see something and let go of all the reasons that the rest of us say, no, no, oh, that makes me uncomfortable, right? I don't know what that is. Um, I'll say when I was demonstrating the app wrapper, the first app store, he stood there and gave me these kind of I some people said that there was a bunch of dialogue. I don't seem to remember anything. But I finished up and I said, there it is, electronic distribution. It's the future. We should get rid of the box, and this should be part of the operating system available to everyone so that every piece of software is available. And he goes, I like it. And he walks away. Um, but by that time, a tale had formed behind him of, it was the biggest audience I had ever
Yeah.
demoed to, and nobody was coming to our I was at a software trade show and I saw Steve and I just said, I was pissed off because nobody was coming to our booth,
Hmm.
and he had been to all these other booths, and I said, Steve, I've busted my ass on this software. I'm Jesse. I busted my ass on this software, and you should see it. And he looks down at me and he goes, okay. And I was like, oh, shit, you mean now? Totally unprepared, and it was probably the worst demo I ever gave. But his ability to see beyond,
Yeah.
everyone else said, no, 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 no. You have to have the books. What you're doing is trying to sell people nothing. People don't want to buy nothing. They
Hmm.
want a book on the shelf. This is evidenced everywhere. Microsoft was just exploding by proving the power of a box that sells for $49.
Hmm.
Before that, software wasn't worth anything.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me about Steve that he is able to see something that is absolutely the reverse, but yet unencumbered by reality. Um, he thinks to himself, gosh, that seems useful. Um, Perhaps this could be applied to the music industry. I don't know if that's his
Yeah.
first thought, but you know, whatever. He grokked it, for lack of a better word. He didn't just understand it, he knew more about it than the creators.
Yeah.
How is that possible? I don't know. He's crazy.
Amazing, amazing. Well, what a thing to have lived through, and it's great to to see how your stories developed from that and all of the work you were doing there, but the strands that have run through to what you're doing now, and I obviously wish you the best in terms of trying to make this happen because it's it's a really worthwhile thing to do. So, thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for joining me today, and really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And I throw the thanks back. I would not be here if not for you already being here. So, you guys who have done the work, you're the ones I admire. I am the newcomer, and I hope to make a tiny dent. But honestly, when I walked around that trade show, and maybe I was attracted to the giant driving game that you guys had out, but I met a lot of really interesting people who care.
Hmm.
You didn't make this company for no reason.
No,
That says something. A
exactly.
lot.
Yeah,
It's everybody's story. So to
yeah.
me, a door has opened up to amazing people who are trying to make the world better through business. I am very lucky indeed, sir.
Good stuff. Same from me. All right, Jesse. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Let me know how I can help.
Thanks for joining us on the Safety and Risk Success podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit follow and do share on social media. Does anyone you know spring to mind as a great guest, even yourself? If so, please contact us on podcast@slipsafety.co.uk. See you next week for another episode.